A 5-year-old orphan hides in a luxurious mansion, but when the young billionaire discovers the real reason for her presence, he is moved to tears. The sun was setting over Greenwich's Connecticut, casting long shadows across the meticulously manicured gardens of the Blackwood mansion. The last rays of daylight bounced off the tempered glass windows, creating a dazzling spectacle of color that would have captured anyone's attention. Anyone, that is, except Michael Blackwood. At 35, Michael was the personification of American success, at least on the surface. His angular face, with piercing grey eyes and perfectly trimmed dark brown hair, often graced the covers of prestigious business magazines. Forbes, Fortune, Bloomberg Businessweek, all had celebrated his achievements, portraying him as the archetype of the modern entrepreneur. That evening, he walked through the silent corridors of his mansion, his footsteps echoing on the Italian marble floor. Each room was a testament to his success and wealth, artworks worth millions, exclusive designer furniture, state-of-the-art technology seamlessly integrated into the home's classic architecture. But to Michael, it was all just a backdrop, a lavish stage for the empty theater of his life. His tech empire, Blue Tech, built from scratch, had made him one of the world's richest men before he turned 30. A leader in artificial intelligence and robotics innovation. With government contracts and a global presence, the company was Michael's pride. Every calculated decision, every strategic move on the corporate chessboard had brought him to the top, but at what cost? Michael stopped in front of a window, staring at the rapidly darkening sky. His own reflection stared back, an impeccably dressed man in a custom Brioni suit, a Patek Philippe watch on his wrist. But the eyes looking back at him were empty, devoid of the spark that had once driven him. Loneliness was his most constant companion. Relationships, mere transactions, superficial encounters with people who saw only the billionaire, never the man. Family. His parents had passed away years ago, leaving him as the sole heir to a name he had turned into a global brand. Friends. If you could call the sycophants and opportunists around him friends. With an almost imperceptible sigh, Michael moved away from the window. It was time for his nightly routine, a rare whiskey, financial reports to review, perhaps a video call with the team in Tokyo. The same routine as always, the monotonous ticking of a life measured in acquisitions and profits. It was then that something changed. A noise, subtle, almost imperceptible, but definitely out of place in the mansion's sepulchral silence. Michael froze, his senses, honed by years of corporate paranoia, going into high alert. Again, a creaking of wood, as if someone were moving stealthily. "Security," Michael called out, his voice echoing through the empty corridors. No answer. Strange. His security team was renowned for their efficiency and discretion. Where were they? Guided by a mixture of curiosity and caution, Michael followed the sound. His once confident steps were now measured, calculated. Every corner, every shadow could hide a threat. After all, there was no shortage of people who would like to see the mighty Michael Blackwood vulnerable. The noise led him to a seldom used part of the mansion, an old guest wing that had remained vacant for years. The shadows seemed denser here, the automated lights responding slowly to his presence. Michael felt something he hadn't felt in a long time, the chill of the unknown. That's when he saw her. In the darkest corner of the room, curled up behind an old armchair, was a child, a little girl, no more than 6, with dark, tangled hair falling over her face. Her eyes, wide and frightened, stared at Michael with a mixture of fear and hope. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Michael, the business titan, the man who could buy and sell companies with a single phone call, was paralyzed. The presence of this child in his impenetrable fortress was so incongruous, so absurd, that for an instant he questioned his own sanity. Who are you?" Michael's voice came out softer than he intended, his usual hardness giving way to a gentleness he didn't recognize in himself. The girl didn't reply immediately. Her eyes, a deep brown that seemed to hold universes of pain, studied Michael with disconcerting intensity. When she finally spoke, Her voice was barely a whisper, fragile like thin glass. I'm Sophia, she said, the words trembling on her lips. Please, don't send me back. Please. The plea in her voice hit Michael like a punch in the gut. Suddenly, all his self-preservation instincts, all the layers of indifference he had carefully built over the years, seemed to melt before this terrified child. Back. Back where, Sophia? Michael approached slowly, as if dealing with a wounded wild animal. Each step was measured, careful. Sophia shrank even more, if that was possible. Her small fingers clutched a worn-out backpack, her knuckles white from the grip. To them, she whispered, fear palpable in every syllable. The Johnsons. My foster parents. Michael's mind worked furiously. A foster child on the run. How had she ended up here, slipping past his state-of-the-art security systems? And more importantly, why was she so terrified of going back? Sophia, Michael said, kneeling so he was at her eye level, completely ignoring the fact that his $10,000 suit was now touching the dusty floor. You're safe here. No one is going to hurt you. Can you tell me why you ran away? It was as if a dam had broken. The words started pouring out of Sophia, interrupted by sobs and tremors. They're mean, she began, her voice gaining strength as she spoke. They hit me, lock me in the dark basement. They say I'm useless, that nobody loves me. Each word was like a knife to Michael's heart. He, who had shielded himself from the world's emotions, now felt a growing anger, an indignation he hadn't experienced in years. They make me work all the time, Sophia continued, the words now flowing in a torrent. Cleaning, cooking, working in the garden. If I do something wrong, they... Her voice faltered, and she hugged her knees, rocking back and forth. That's when Michael noticed them. The bruises, dark marks on Sophia's arms, partially hidden by the sleeves of her dirty, oversized t-shirt. Marks that could not have come from children's play or simple accidents. Sophia, Michael said, his voice now a mixture of gentleness and tightly controlled anger he barely recognized in himself. Can I see your arms? Reluctantly, Sophia stretched out her trembling arms. Michael felt his stomach turn. The bruises were extensive, in various stages of healing. Some looked fresh, others had already turned yellowish. And it wasn't just her arms. Now that he looked closer, he could see marks on Sophia's neck, a bruise almost hidden by her hair at her temple. They did this to you? The question was almost unnecessary, but Michael needed to hear it, needed to be sure. Sophia nodded, silent tears streaming down her grimy cheeks. When I don't finish my chores on time, or when I make too much noise, or when... She swallowed hard. When I ask for food. It was as if all the air had been sucked out of the room. Michael felt a wave of nausea as he realized what Sophia was implying. His eyes traveled over the child's frail body, noticing for the first time how thin she was. Her sunken cheeks, her wrists as slender as twigs, how her oversized clothes seemed to swallow her up. They don't feed you properly. The question came out as a horrified whisper. Sophia shook her head. Only when I finish all the chores. Sometimes I go days with just tap water. Michael felt something inside him break. All his life, he had prided himself on his rationality, on his ability to make tough decisions without being swayed by emotion. But now, in front of this broken child, all his cold logic crumbled. Tell me more, Sophia, he urged, his voice gentle, encouraging. What else do they do? And Sophia told him. With a courage Michael could barely comprehend, she recited a litany of horrors, nights spent locked in a dark closet as punishment, entire days of work in scorching heat or bitter cold, her small hands calloused and bleeding, the constant torrent of verbal abuse, each insult hammering her already fragile self-esteem. They make me clean the entire house every day, Sophia said, her eyes fixed on some distant point, as if reliving each moment. If I don't finish before they come home from work, I don't get dinner, and if something isn't perfect... She shuddered, hugging herself tighter. Michael had to resist the urge to wrap her in his arms, knowing any sudden movement could scare her even more. What happens if something isn't perfect, Sophia? He asked gently, though he dreaded the answer. They use a belt, Sophia whispered, her voice barely audible. Or sometimes the garden rod. They say it's to teach me to do things right. Michael closed his eyes for a moment, struggling to contain the wave of fury threatening to consume him. How could anyone do this to a child? How could they call it teaching? And it's not just the cleaning, Sophia continued, words now flowing as if a floodgate had opened. They make me cook, too. I have to stand on a stool to reach the stove. One time I burned the bacon and... She stopped, visibly trembling. Michael waited, giving her time to find the words. They pressed my hand against the hot skillet, Sophia finally said, extending her right palm. Even in the dim light, Michael could see the whitish scar covering much of her delicate skin. The nausea Michael had felt before turned into pure, incandescent rage. He wanted to scream, to smash something, to hunt down the monsters who had done this and make them pay. But he held back, knowing any show of anger now would only scare Sophia more. What about the garden? He asked quietly, recalling that she'd mentioned it earlier. Sophia nodded sadly. They make me take care of the whole garden. Plant, water, prune, pull weeds. It doesn't matter if it's raining or if the sun is too hot. If I complain, they say I'm ungrateful, that I should be thankful for having a roof over my head. Michael looked at Sophia's small hands, noticing for the first time the calluses and cuts. Hands that should have been holding crayons and toys, not gardening tools and cleaning supplies. What about school? He asked, dreading the answer. Sophia lowered her gaze, nervously picking at the hem of her worn t-shirt. They took me out of school last year, said it was too expensive and I wasn't smart enough to be worth the investment. Now they say they homeschool me, but what, Sophia? They never actually teach me anything, she whispered. They just give me chores to do. They say learning to work is more important than reading silly books. Michael felt his heart break a little more. It wasn't enough that they were inflicting physical and emotional abuse. They were also robbing Sophia of her education, of her future. What about the neighbors? Michael asked, a part of him still hoping there was some light in this dark story. Did they never notice anything? Sophia shook her head sadly. The Johnsons are very careful. When there are visitors or when we go out, they act like they're the best parents in the world. They make me wear nice clothes to hide the bruises, and they threaten me so I'll smile and act happy. She paused, biting her lower lip. Once, I tried to tell my teacher at school, but the Johnsons found out. They locked me in the basement for 3 days after that. No food, no water, just darkness. They said if I told anyone again, it would be much worse. Michael felt a wave of nausea, imagining the terror Sophia must have felt, locked alone in the darkness for days. A 6-year-old child, punished so cruelly for seeking help. The injustice of it all hit him with full force. How did you manage to escape, Sophia? He asked gently, marveling at this little girl's courage. Sophia took a deep breath, as though gathering her strength to tell this part of the story. Last night, they forgot to lock the back door. I waited until they were asleep and left. I walked all night, hiding whenever I saw cars. I didn't know where to go, I just knew it had to be far from them. She looked around the luxurious room, still seeming unsure of where she was. I saw this big house and thought maybe I could hide here for a while. I didn't know anyone would find me. As Sophia finished her story, Michael felt something inside him break completely. All his years of privilege, all his success and wealth, seemed hollow and meaningless in the face of this child's suffering. And then, to his own surprise, Michael started to cry. Not quiet or restrained tears, but deep, wrenching sobs that seemed to come from the depths of his soul. Years of repressed emotions, of carefully cultivated coldness, crumbled in the wake of Sophia's story. Sophia, startled by this display of emotion from the imposing stranger, hesitated for a moment before extending a trembling little hand. Her fingers gently touched Michael's cheek, a gesture of comfort so pure, so innocent, that it only made him cry harder. Why are you crying? Sophia asked, her voice a mixture of confusion and concern. Michael tried to pull himself together, wiping the tears with the back of his hand. Because no one should go through what you went through, Sophia. No one. Especially not a child. At that moment, with Sophia looking at him with a mix of hope and fear, Michael felt something shift inside him. All his life, his privileges, his power, his wealth, it all seemed so empty, so insignificant in the face of this single child's suffering. He thought of his mansion, with its countless empty rooms, its unused pool, its gardens maintained more for show than pleasure. He thought of the galas, the board meetings, the endless negotiations for more power, more money, more... what exactly? And here was Sophia, a child who had known only pain and rejection, offering comfort to a stranger. The irony wasn't lost on Michael. He, who had everything money could buy, was receiving the first genuine sign of empathy in years from a little girl who had nothing. In that moment, Michael made a decision. "Sophia," he said softly, "you need a warm bath and clean clothes. Then we'll get you something to eat, okay?" Sophia nodded timidly, still cautious but with a spark of hope in her eyes. Michael led her to one of the many guest bathrooms, explaining how the faucets worked and where to find fresh towels. Then he went to his own room, rummaging through his closets for something that could serve as an improvised nightshirt for Sophia. While waiting for Sophia to finish her bath, Michael headed to the kitchen. For the first time in years, he prepared a meal himself, a simple sandwich and a bowl of soup he found in the freezer. It wasn't much, but it was the best he could do at the moment. When Sophia emerged from the bathroom, clean and wearing one of Michael's shirts that looked more like a dress on her, something in the billionaire's heart tightened. She looked so small, so vulnerable. "Come," he said gently. "Let's get you something to eat." As Sophia ate, slowly at first and then more enthusiastically, Michael watched her, his mind in turmoil. What should he do now? Contacting the authorities seemed like the right course of action, but what if they sent her back, or placed her in a system that could be just as cruel? "Sophia," he finally said, "you know I should call the police, right?" The terror that instantly filled the little girl's eyes was like a punch to Michael's stomach. "Please," she begged, fresh tears welling up. "Please don't send me back, they'll hurt me. Please." Michael felt his heart break all over again. He knew what the law said he should do, but looking at Sophia, at the palpable fear in her eyes, he couldn't bear the thought of betraying her trust. "All right," he said gently, "I won't call anyone tonight. We'll rest, and tomorrow we'll figure out what to do, okay?" Sophia nodded, visibly relieved. Michael led her to one of the guest bedrooms, making sure she was comfortable before retreating to his own room. But sleep didn't come easily to the billionaire that night. Lying in his king-size bed, on his Egyptian cotton sheets, Michael couldn't stop thinking about Sophia, sleeping in the next room. How his life had changed completely in just a few hours. How, for the first time in years, he felt truly alive. But with that feeling came a crushing anxiety. What should he do? What was the right thing to do? The consequences of his actions, or inaction, weighed heavily on him. As the night wore on, Michael Blackwood, the man once known only for his wealth and power, now found himself redefined by a silent promise made to a frightened child. And as the sun began to rise, marking the start of a new day, he knew his real journey had only just begun. Dawn had barely broken when Michael Blackwood descended the stairs of his mansion, his eyes heavy from a restless night. His impeccable suit and rigid posture sharply contrasted with the storm of emotions consuming him inside. Sophia's unexpected arrival had turned his world upside down, and he now faced a dilemma none of his business experience had prepared him for. Upon reaching the kitchen, Michael found Linda, his longtime housekeeper, already at work. Linda was a middle-aged woman with grey hair always pulled into a neat bun and kind eyes that seemed to see right through any facade. She had been a constant presence in Michael's life since he inherited his parents' mansion, and was probably the closest thing to family he had. "Good morning, Mr. Blackwood," Linda greeted him, a note of concern in her voice. "You look like you didn't sleep well. Is everything all right?" Michael hesitated for a moment, weighing his options. He knew he needed help, and Linda had always been loyal and discreet. Making a decision, he shut the kitchen door and sat down at the table. "Linda," he began, his voice low and tense, "I need to tell you something, and I need you to keep it absolutely confidential." Linda's expression grew serious as she sat across from Michael. "Of course, sir. What happened?" Michael took a deep breath and started telling Sophia's story, how he had found her, the abuse she had suffered, and the dilemma he now faced. As he spoke, he saw Linda's expression shift from shock to horror, and finally to fierce determination. "Where is the girl now?" Linda asked as soon as Michael finished. "In the guest room on the second floor," Michael replied. "I think she's still asleep." Linda nodded, her eyes shining with a mix of compassion and resolve. "Mr. Blackwood, you did the right thing by not calling the authorities immediately. God knows what might happen if she was sent back to those horrible people or thrown into the system." Michael felt a weight lift from his shoulders at Linda's words. "So you think we should keep her here, but how? Isn't that illegal?" Linda sighed. "Legally complicated, no doubt, but morally, it's the only right thing to do at the moment. That child needs safety, care, and time to recover before we deal with any legal complications." "And you'd help me with this?" Michael asked, a note of hope in his voice. Linda smiled, a warm smile that lit up her face. "Of course, Mr. Blackwood. I'll take care of Sophia as if she were my own granddaughter. No one but us will know she's here." The relief Michael felt was almost palpable. "Linda, I don't know how to thank you." "No need to thank me," Linda gently interrupted. "It's the right thing to do. Now let's focus on helping this little girl and finding out more about her situation." At that moment, as if called by their conversation, they heard hesitant footsteps on the stairs. Sophia appeared in the kitchen doorway, still wearing Michael's oversized shirt, her eyes wide with fear when she saw Linda. Sensing the child's apprehension, Linda immediately softened her expression and posture. "Hello, sweetheart," she said in a gentle voice. "You must be Sophia. I'm Linda. I'm here to help take care of you, if you'll let me." Sophia looked at Michael for reassurance. When he nodded encouragingly, she relaxed a bit. "Hello," she whispered. "So you must be hungry," Linda continued, already moving about the kitchen. "How about some pancakes with maple syrup? That used to be Mr. Blackwood's favorite breakfast when he was a child." Sophia's face lit up slightly at the mention of pancakes, and she nodded shyly. While Linda prepared breakfast, Michael headed to his office. He had an important call to make. Dialing a number he rarely used, he waited until a familiar voice answered on the other end. "Elliot Reynolds speaking." "Elliot, it's Michael Blackwood. I need your services. It's a delicate, urgent matter." Elliot Reynolds was a private investigator Michael had hired a few times in the past to vet potential business partners. He was known for his discretion and efficiency. "I'm listening, Mr. Blackwood," Elliot said, professional as always. Michael explained Sophia's situation, omitting the fact that the girl was currently in his house. He asked Elliot to investigate the Johnsons, her foster parents, as well as the entire adoption process. "I want to know everything about them," Michael concluded. "Their backgrounds, finances, whether there have been previous abuse allegations, everything. And I want to know how a child could end up in such a terrible situation without anyone noticing." "Understood, Mr. Blackwood," Elliot replied. "I'll get started right away. Expect to hear from me soon." After hanging up, Michael returned to the kitchen. The scene that greeted him warmed his heart in a way he never expected. Sophia was sitting at the table, eating pancakes with a cautious enthusiasm he hadn't yet seen in her. Linda sat beside her, speaking softly and occasionally stroking the girl's hair. Seeing Michael, Sophia gave a shy smile, a bit of syrup at the corner of her mouth. "These are the best pancakes I've ever eaten," she said quietly. Michael felt something tighten in his chest. It was the first time he'd seen a genuine smile on Sophia's face. "Linda always made the best pancakes," he responded, sitting down at the table. As they ate, Linda and Michael exchanged meaningful looks. They knew they had a long road ahead, but they were determined to protect Sophia at all costs. In the days that followed, a routine began to form at the Blackwood mansion. Linda took on the role of Sophia's primary caregiver, while Michael balanced his business responsibilities with his new role as the girl's protector. Initially shy and frightened, Sophia slowly began to open up under Linda's gentle care. The housekeeper had a special way with the little girl, instinctively knowing when to offer comfort and when to give her space. One afternoon, as Linda was combing Sophia's hair after a bath, the little girl began to talk about her life before the adoption. "I don't remember much about my real mom," Sophia said softly. "But I remember she used to sing to me every night. She had a beautiful voice." Linda listened attentively, her heart breaking at the pain evident in the girl's voice. "What happened to her, sweetheart?" Sophia shrugged, tears filling her eyes. "They said she got really sick. I stayed in a place with lots of other kids for a while, and then the Johnsons came to get me." Linda hugged Sophia gently, letting the child cry on her shoulder. "You are very brave, Sophia, and now you're safe here with us." Meanwhile, Michael was receiving the first updates from Elliot. The investigator had uncovered a concerning history. There had been previous allegations of neglect against the Johnsons, though nothing had been proven. Their finances were unstable, with significant debts. Even more worrisome, Elliot found inconsistencies in Sophia's adoption process. Some documents appeared to have been falsified, and there were indications that someone within the adoption agency might have been bribed to speed things up. Michael felt his anger grow as he read Elliot's report. How could a system designed to protect vulnerable children fail Sophia so miserably? That night, after Sophia had gone to sleep, Michael and Linda met in his office to discuss the findings. "It's worse than we imagined," Linda said, her voice trembling with indignation. "Those people should never have been approved for adoption." Michael nodded grimly, and it seems there are more people involved in this situation than just the Johnsons. "The question is, what do we do now?" Linda thought for a moment before replying. "Mr. Blackwood, Sophia needs stability and safety now more than ever. She's starting to trust us, to feel safe here. We can't just turn her over to the authorities without knowing what will happen to her." "But we can't keep her hidden forever," Michael argued, although his voice betrayed his reluctance to do anything that might harm Sophia. "No, we can't," Linda agreed. "But we can give her time to recover, to feel loved and protected. Meanwhile, we keep investigating, gathering evidence. When we have a solid case, we can ensure Sophia never goes back to those terrible people." Michael considered Linda's words. He knew that what they were doing was legally questionable, but morally, it felt like the only option. "What about her needs?" Michael asked. "Education, health, emotional development? We can't just keep her locked up here." Linda smiled, determination shining in her eyes. "Leave that to me, Mr. Blackwood. I was a teacher before I became a housekeeper. I can handle Sophia's education. As for her health, I know a discreet doctor who can make house calls if needed. And for her emotional development, well, that's something we can all contribute to." Michael felt a wave of gratitude toward Linda. "I don't know what I'd do without you, Linda." "We're in this together, Mr. Blackwood," Linda replied. "That little girl deserves a chance at a happy, healthy life, and we'll do whatever it takes to give her that chance." In the days that followed, Michael watched in admiration as Linda put her plan into action. She set up a routine for Sophia that included morning lessons, afternoon playtime, and evening reading sessions. Linda also introduced therapeutic activities, such as drawing and gardening in a small greenhouse at the back of the property. Sophia blossomed under Linda's care. Her nightmares, once frequent, began to subside. She smiled more, talked more, and even started humming softly while drawing or helping Linda in the kitchen. One evening, as Michael passed by Sophia's room, he heard Linda softly singing a lullaby. Stopping at the door, he saw Sophia nestled in Linda's arms, her eyes heavy with sleep, a small smile on her lips. In that moment, Michael fully realized the impact of his actions. He had given Sophia not only physical safety, but also the chance to experience the love and care every child deserves. Still, the situation weighed heavily on Michael. He knew they were walking a fine line, and that everything could fall apart at any moment. Elliot's investigations continued, revealing an increasingly complex web of negligence and corruption in the adoption system. One afternoon, as Michael was working in his office, Linda knocked softly on the door. "Mr. Blackwood," she said, her expression serious, "we need to talk about Sophia's future." Michael motioned for her to come in and sit down. "What are you thinking, Linda?" Linda took a deep breath before speaking. "Sophia is making wonderful progress, but she needs more than we can offer here in hiding. She needs a chance at a normal life. Michael felt his heart tighten. He knew Linda was right, but the thought of Sophia leaving the mansion, of not seeing her every day, was more painful than he expected. "What do you suggest?" he asked, his voice rough with suppressed emotion. Linda looked him straight in the eye, her expression gentle yet determined. "Mr. Blackwood, we need a long-term plan. We can't keep Sophia hidden forever, but we also can't just hand her over to the authorities without guarantees." Michael nodded, feeling the weight of the responsibility they had taken on. "You're right, Linda. What do you have in mind?" "Well," Linda began, "first, we need to maintain the routine we've established. The lessons, the therapeutic activities, all of that is helping Sophia heal. But we also need to think about how we'll handle the legal side eventually." Michael frowned with concern. "Elliot is still investigating. What he's finding is disturbing, to say the least. It looks like there's a far bigger corruption network than we initially thought." Linda shook her head, dismayed. "That's terrible. How many other children could be suffering because of this corruption?" "It's what keeps me up at night," Michael admitted. "But I also worry about Sophia. How can we guarantee her safety and well-being without alerting the authorities?" Linda thought for a moment before answering. "Mr. Blackwood, I think we need to continue as we are for now. Give Sophia time to heal, to feel safe. In the meantime, we keep gathering evidence, building a strong case. When we're ready, we can ensure she'll never be returned to those people." Michael agreed. "You're right. We can't risk Sophia's well-being by acting too hastily." At that moment, as if summoned by their conversation, they heard light footsteps in the hallway. Sophia appeared at the office door, her bright eyes and a book in her hands. "Michael! Linda, can I read you a story?" she asked, her voice full of excitement. Michael and Linda exchanged significant looks before turning to Sophia with warm smiles. "Of course, dear," Linda said. "We'd love to hear it." As Sophia settled between them and began to read, her voice growing more confident with each word, Michael felt a wave of emotion wash over him. Watching Sophia's progress, hearing her voice, once timid and now so full of hope, was living proof they were doing the right thing. Later that night, after Sophia had gone to bed, Michael and Linda continued their conversation. "Linda," Michael began quietly, "do you think we're doing the right thing by keeping Sophia hidden?" Linda sighed, choosing her words carefully. "At this moment, Mr. Blackwood, I believe so. She's healing here, she's safe, learning and starting to trust again. If we hand her over to the authorities now, we don't know what could happen." Michael nodded, feeling the weight of his decision. "You're right, but we can't keep her hidden forever. At some point, we'll have to face the legal consequences of our actions." "Yes," Linda agreed. "But when that moment comes, we'll be prepared. We'll have evidence, we'll have a solid case, and more importantly, Sophia will be stronger, better able to handle whatever comes next." Michael felt another wave of gratitude for Linda. Her wisdom and compassion had been invaluable over the past few weeks. "I don't know what I'd do without you, Linda," he admitted. Linda smiled gently. "We're in this together, Mr. Blackwood. That little girl deserves a chance at a happy and healthy life, and we'll do everything we can to make sure she gets it." In the days that followed, Michael continued to watch in admiration as Linda carried out her plan. Sophia's routine included morning lessons, afternoon playtime, and evening reading. Linda also introduced more therapeutic activities, such as music and art. Sophia thrived under Linda's care. Her nightmares, once frequent, began to subside. She smiled more, talked more, and even started to sing softly while drawing or helping in the kitchen. Meanwhile, Elliot's investigation continued, revealing an ever more complex web of negligence and corruption in the adoption system. Each new discovery reinforced Michael's conviction that they had done the right thing by protecting Sophia. One afternoon, while Michael was working in his office, he received a call from Elliot. "Mr. Blackwood," the investigator's voice sounded urgent, "I've found something you need to see. It's about Sophia's biological parents." Michael felt his heart race. "What did you find, Elliot?" "It's better if we discuss this in person," Elliot replied. "Can I drop by tomorrow?" "Sure," Michael agreed. his mind already spinning with possibilities. "I'll be waiting." After ending the call, Michael sat in silence for a long moment, contemplating the uncertain future that lay ahead. He knew Elliot's discoveries could change everything, but one thing remained constant: his commitment to Sophia's well-being. With a resolute sigh, Michael stood and left the office. He found Linda and Sophia in the living room, both laughing as they worked on a giant jigsaw puzzle together. Watching them, Michael felt a mixture of apprehension and hope. Whatever the future held, he knew they would do whatever was necessary to protect Sophia and secure her future. Early the next morning, Michael Blackwood descended the mansion's stairs, eyes bleary from another sleepless night. The recent discoveries by Elliot Reynolds, his private investigator, weighed on him like lead. Each step toward the kitchen felt like an eternity, as though time itself conspired to make him face the decision he knew he had to make. Entering the kitchen, he found Linda already preparing breakfast, her face a mirror of his own apprehension. "Good morning, Mr. Blackwood," she greeted softly. "You look like you didn't sleep." Michael nodded, running a hand over his tired face. "Linda, we need to talk. Elliot's findings, they're worse than we imagined." Before he could elaborate, the sound of light footsteps interrupted them. Sophia walked into the kitchen, her face lit by a smile that quickly vanished when she sensed the tension in the room. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice small and hesitant. Michael forced a smile, trying to ease the child's worry. "Everything's fine, Sophia. Just boring grown-up stuff. How about you have breakfast, and then you can go play in the garden?" While Sophia ate, Michael and Linda exchanged meaningful looks, aware they'd have to postpone their conversation. Later, with Sophia occupied with her drawings in the living room, they reconvened in the office. "Linda," Michael began, his voice trembling with pent-up emotion, "I think we need to consider taking all of this to the authorities. What's happening is bigger than we are. Children are suffering." Linda listened intently, her face mirroring his concern. "I understand your position, Mr. Blackwood, but we have to think carefully about the consequences. What will happen to Sophia if we do that?" As if conjured by the mention of her name, a piercing scream rang out from the living room. Michael and Linda rushed to find Sophia curled up in a corner, eyes wide with terror, struggling to breathe. "Don't send me back," she screamed between sobs. "Please don't send me back to them." Linda immediately knelt by Sophia's side, speaking to her in a calming, soothing voice. "Shh, sweetheart, it's all right. No one is sending you back. You're safe here." Michael watched helplessly as Linda gently calmed the little girl, guiding her through breathing exercises and whispering words of reassurance. Sophia's panic was palpable, a visceral reminder of her trauma. When Sophia finally fell asleep from sheer exhaustion, cradled in Linda's arms, Michael felt the weight of his decision more than ever. How could he even consider doing anything that would inflict such terror on this child, who had already suffered so much? Linda looked at Michael, compassion and determination filling her eyes. "Mr. Blackwood," she said softly, "I know you want to do the right thing, but maybe the right thing isn't as simple as it seems. Sophia needs us now more than ever." Michael nodded slowly, feeling defeated. "You're right, Linda. But what do we do then? We can't just ignore what we've learned." Linda thought for a moment before replying, "Maybe it's best to dig deeper before taking any drastic action. The more information we have, the better prepared we'll be to protect Sophia and any other children who might be in danger." Linda's suggestion made sense to Michael. He agreed, deciding he would have Elliot delve even further, uncovering every sordid detail of this web of corruption and abuse. In the days that followed, life at the Blackwood mansion took on a tense routine. By day, Linda and Michael tried to maintain an appearance of normalcy for Sophia, continuing her lessons and activities. But at night, once Sophia was asleep, they met to discuss Elliot's latest discoveries. The investigator had uncovered a disturbing history of the Johnsons. There were previous reports of abuse in other cities, carefully covered up by bribes and political connections. The couple seemed to move from state to state, leaving a trail of traumatized children behind. Each new revelation made Michael's stomach churn. How had these people managed to pass the adoption process repeatedly? The answer, unfortunately, seemed to lie in a complex network of corrupt officials and negligent bureaucrats. Meanwhile, Sophia's nightmares worsened. Night after night, Linda and Michael were awakened by her terrified screams. In her dreams, Sophia relived the horrors she had endured, often revealing details she hadn't mentioned before. One particularly difficult night, after calming Sophia from yet another nightmare, Linda shared with Michael something the girl had mentioned during her panic. She talked about a basement, Mr. Blackwood, Linda said, her voice trembling slightly. A place they used to lock her up for days, sometimes without food or water. She said there were other kids there too at some point. Michael felt a fresh wave of nausea. The thought of Sophia, and possibly other children, locked in a dark basement, hungry and terrified, was almost more than he could bear. "We have to do something, Linda," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "We can't let this continue." Linda nodded, her eyes shining with determination. "I agree, Mr. Blackwood, but we have to be cautious, for Sophia, and for all the other kids who might be in danger." Over the next few days, Linda intensified her efforts to help Sophia cope with her trauma. She introduced art therapy techniques, encouraging Sophia to express her feelings through drawings and paintings. She also began teaching the girl simple meditation and mindfulness exercises adapted to her age. Michael watched in admiration as Linda worked tirelessly, and he observed Sophia's slow but steady progress. The little girl still had moments of fear and anxiety, but she also showed surprising resilience. One afternoon, as Linda and Sophia worked in the garden planting flowers in a small plot they had created together, Michael observed from his office window. The scene was so peaceful, so normal, that for a moment he almost forgot about the storm looming on the horizon. The ringing of the phone brought him back to reality. It was Elliot, his voice urgent on the other end of the line. "Mr. Blackwood, I've discovered something you need to see immediately," the investigator said. "It's about the Johnsons. I think I've found evidence of a crime far more serious than we thought." Michael felt his heart pound. "What are you talking about, Elliot?" "Child trafficking, Mr. Blackwood," Elliot replied, his voice low and grim. "I think the Johnsons might be involved in a child trafficking ring." The world seemed to stand still. Michael looked out the window again, seeing Sophia laughing while Linda helped her plant daisies. The contrast between the idyllic scene outside and Elliot's horrific revelation felt surreal. "Come at once, Elliot," Michael said, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions in his chest. "We need to discuss this in person." Hanging up, Michael realized he stood at the greatest moral crossroads of his life. The situation had become infinitely more complex than he ever could have imagined. It was no longer just about protecting Sophia, but possibly saving countless other children from a terrible fate. As he waited for Elliot's arrival, Michael watched Linda and Sophia in the garden, his heart heavy with the knowledge of what lay ahead. He knew that the decisions he would make in the coming days would shape not only Sophia's future, but perhaps the fate of many other vulnerable children. When Elliot arrived, the three of them, Michael, Linda, and the investigator, gathered in the office. Elliot laid out his findings, each word more shocking than the last. The child trafficking network was extensive, involving not only the Johnsons, but also corrupt employees in the adoption system, local politicians, and even some members of law enforcement. "What do you suggest we do, Elliot?" Michael asked, his voice shaky but determined. "Honestly, Mr. Blackwood, this is too big for us to handle alone. We need to involve the federal authorities, the FBI, maybe even the Department of Justice." Michael closed his eyes, thinking of Sophia and her terror of being sent back. But he also thought of all the other children who might be suffering right now. Linda, who had been silent until then, finally spoke. "Mr. Blackwood, I know it's not my place, but I believe you're right about involving the authorities. But I also believe our priority should be protecting Sophia. She trusts us. We can't betray that." Michael nodded, feeling a surge of gratitude for Linda. "You're absolutely right, Linda. Sophia is our #1 priority." Turning back to Elliot, he continued, "We need a plan, one that lets us expose this ring without putting Sophia or any other child in immediate danger." The three of them spent the next few hours discussing strategies, weighing the risks and benefits of each course of action. As night wore on, a plan began to form. risky, but offering the best chance of both justice and protection for the children involved. By the time they finished, the sky outside was already lightening with the first rays of dawn. Michael stood, feeling exhausted but resolute. "Elliot, start preparing everything. Linda, we're going to need you more than ever to keep Sophia safe and calm in the coming days." They both nodded, their faces reflecting the same determination Michael felt. As Elliot left and Linda went off to begin preparations for the day, Michael remained alone in his office. He walked over to the window, watching the sun rise over the mansion's gardens. The phone rang sharply in Michael Blackwood's office, shattering the morning silence. With a sigh, he picked up, expecting another business call. But the tense voice of Elliot on the other end made his heart race. "Mr. Blackwood, we have a problem," the investigator said without preamble. "A missing person report has been filed for Sophia. The police are starting to investigate." Michael felt the blood run cold in his veins. He knew this moment would come, but he had hoped for more time. "How long do we have, Elliot?" "Not long. The police are already asking around. It's only a matter of time before they come to your property." Thanking Elliot for the information, Michael ended the call and immediately went looking for Linda. He found her in the kitchen, making breakfast with Sophia, a scene of domestic normalcy starkly contrasted by the urgency of the situation. "Linda, we need to talk," Michael said, giving Sophia a significant look. "Understanding," Linda smiled at the girl. "Sophia, sweetheart, why don't you finish your drawing in the living room while I talk to Mr. Blackwood?" As soon as Sophia left, Michael explained the situation to Linda. Her face turned pale, but she remained composed. "What do we do now, Mr. Blackwood?" she asked, her voice low and worried. "We need to protect Sophia at all costs," Michael said, his mind already formulating plans. "But we have to be careful. If we're caught hiding her, things could get even worse." Linda nodded, understanding the gravity of their position. "Should we tell Sophia? She needs to be prepared if the police come." Michael hesitated. The idea of frightening Sophia unsettled him, but he knew Linda was right. "Yes, but gently. We don't want to trigger another panic attack." Together, they called Sophia back into the kitchen. Speaking in gentle, reassuring tones, they explained that some people were looking for her, but promised they would do everything possible to keep her safe. "Sophia," Michael said, kneeling to look her in the eye, "if someone comes here looking for you, it's very important you stay quiet and hide, okay? Can you do that for us?" Sophia nodded, her eyes wide with fear, but trusting. "I promise," she whispered. In the following days, tension filled Blackwood Mansion. Michael doubled security measures, installing new alarms and hiring additional guards, under the pretense of concern for his own safety as a public figure. Linda worked tirelessly to keep Sophia occupied and calm, intensifying her lessons and activities indoors. They practiced hide-and-seek games, which Linda disguised as simple fun but were actually drills in case of emergency. Meanwhile, Michael watched local news with growing unease. Sophia's disappearance was gaining media attention, with the Johnsons giving tearful interviews pleading for the return of their beloved foster daughter. Their hypocrisy made Michael's blood boil. One afternoon, while Michael was working in his office, Linda rushed in looking pale. "Mr. Blackwood, there are police cars at the gate," she said, her voice shaking. Michael's heart skipped a beat. "Sophia?" "She's hiding in the spot we practiced," Linda replied promptly. Nodding approval, Michael stood up. "Good, I'll deal with them." "Remember, Linda, we know nothing." Michael greeted the officers at the front door, his expression carefully composed into polite surprise. He invited them in, offering full cooperation. "Mr. Blackwood," one detective began, "we're investigating the disappearance of a girl named Sophia Johnson. Do you have any information that might help?" Michael shook his head, his face a mask of concern. "I'm sorry, officer, but I haven't heard of a missing child in the area. That's terrible. How can I help?" The police asked a few more questions, did a brief check of the house's main areas, and left, apparently satisfied with Michael's answers. But he knew this was only the beginning. As soon as the officers were gone, Michael rushed to find Sophia. The little girl was curled up in her hiding spot, trembling slightly. Upon seeing Michael, she threw herself into his arms, silently sobbing. "You were so brave, Sophia," Michael whispered, holding her tightly. "So very brave." That night, after putting Sophia to bed, Michael and Linda convened in his office once again. The gravity of the situation weighed on them both. "We can't go on like this much longer," Linda said, her voice weary. "Sophia deserves a normal life, without constant fear." Michael nodded, running a hand over his face in frustration. "You're right. We need professional help." The next morning, Michael made a phone call he had been putting off for weeks. "Hello, Dr. Rebecca Stern. This is Michael Blackwood. I need your help with a delicate situation." Rebecca Stern was a renowned lawyer specializing in children's rights. Michael had thoroughly researched her background and was impressed by her experience with tough cases and impeccable ethics. Hours later, Dr. Stern sat in Michael's office, listening attentively as he and Linda recounted Sophia's story. Her face remained professional, but her eyes revealed her concern and compassion. "Mr. Blackwood, Ms. Linda," she began once they finished, "what you've done for Sophia is admirable, but it's also extremely risky. Legally speaking, we need to act quickly to legitimize this situation." "What do you suggest, Dr. Stern?" Michael asked, leaning forward anxiously. "First, we need to document everything. The abuse Sophia suffered, the evidence you've gathered about the Johnsons, and the trafficking ring. Then we'll file an emergency guardianship request for you, Mr. Blackwood, while we initiate proceedings to permanently terminate the Johnsons' parental rights." Linda frowned worriedly. "But what if they try to take Sophia back while the process is ongoing?" Dr. Stern shook her head. "With the evidence we have, I can get a protective order for Sophia. She won't have to go back to the Johnsons." Michael felt a huge weight lift from his shoulders. "And what about the trafficking ring? How do we handle that without putting Sophia in danger?" "We'll work with federal authorities," Dr. Stern explained. "We'll present the evidence anonymously at first, to keep Sophia safe. But eventually, she'll likely have to testify." The thought of Sophia having to relive her trauma in a courtroom made Michael's stomach churn. But he knew it was necessary to secure justice not just for her, but for all the other children victimized by this ring. "Linda," Michael turned to the housekeeper, "we need to prepare Sophia for what's coming. She needs to understand what will happen without feeling overwhelmed or terrified." Linda nodded, determination shining in her eyes. "Leave it to me, Mr. Blackwood. I'll help her understand in the kindest way possible." In the following days, Linda worked tirelessly with Sophia, using games, stories, and carefully planned conversations to prepare her for possible interactions with the authorities. Michael watched in awe as the girl, though still frightened, displayed notable courage and resilience. Meanwhile, Michael and Dr. Stern worked day and night, assembling the necessary documentation and formulating a solid legal strategy. They knew they were about to embark on a tough battle, but their resolve to protect Sophia and expose the ring drove them forward. A week after the police's initial visit, Michael received another call from Elliot. "Mr. Blackwood, the police are stepping up their search. They're planning a full sweep of the area in the next few days." Michael knew it was time to act. Glancing at a photo of Sophia on his desk, smiling shyly while holding a colorful drawing, he picked up the phone. "Dr. Stern, it's time. We'll file the papers tomorrow morning." As night fell over the Blackwood mansion, Michael found himself on the veranda gazing at the stars. The walls were closing in, but for the first time in weeks, he felt a spark of hope. Tomorrow, they would take the first step in securing Sophia's future and revealing the truth to the world. Linda joined him, carrying 2 cups of tea. "Sophia finally fell asleep," she said gently. "She's stronger than we realize, you know." Michael nodded, giving a tired but determined smile. "Yes, she is. And we're going to make sure she has a chance to show that strength to the world in a safe, protected way." Sipping their tea in companionable silence, both knew the real challenge was only beginning. But with Sophia as their inspiration, they were ready to face whatever lay ahead. Morning broke grey and rainy, as though the sky itself reflected the gravity of the day's events. Michael Blackwood adjusted his tie for the 3rd time, his reflection in the mirror revealing the anxiety he struggled to hide. "It's time, Mr. Blackwood," came the calm voice of Dr. Rebecca Stern behind him. Michael nodded, turning to face the woman who had become his most important ally in recent weeks. "We're doing the right thing, aren't we, Rebecca?" The lawyer gave him a gentle smile. "Absolutely. Today is the day we start securing Sophia's future, and hopefully the futures of many other children." With a final deep breath, Michael followed Dr. Stern out of the mansion. Linda stood at the door, Sophia by her side, both wearing expressions of mingled fear and hope. "It'll be okay, sweetheart." Michael knelt to speak with Sophia. "Remember what we talked about. Be brave and always tell the truth." Sophia nodded solemnly, her big brown eyes filled with understanding beyond her years. "I promise, Michael." The drive to the police station felt endless. Michael mentally reviewed all the evidence they'd collected and all the carefully prepared statements. When they arrived, they were greeted by a group of detectives and social workers, all wearing grave expressions. "Mr. Blackwood," began Detective Johnson, a middle-aged man in charge of the case. "I understand you have information regarding the missing girl, Sophia Johnson." "Yes, Detective," Michael replied, his voice firm despite his nerves. "And not just that. We have evidence of a much larger case of child abuse and possible trafficking." The next few hours were a whirlwind of testimonies, evidence presentations, and heated discussions. Dr. Stern systematically laid out every piece of evidence they had: medical reports documenting Sophia's abuse, discrepancies in her adoption, suspicious ties of the Johnsons to other troubled foster arrangements. As the truth emerged, Michael watched the expressions of the officers change, from skepticism to shock, and finally to fierce resolve. When it was time for Sophia to give her statement, Michael's heart ached. The little girl entered the interview room, tiny and fragile, yet with a courage that filled Michael with pride. Linda was allowed to accompany her, offering comfort and support. Sophia spoke quietly but clearly about the abuse she had suffered, the long hours of forced labor, the cruel punishments. Silent tears slid down Linda's face, and Michael fought the urge to interrupt and protect Sophia from having to relive the ordeal. Near the end of her statement, Sophia mentioned something that caught everyone's attention. "They had a secret safe," she said almost casually, "behind the big painting in the living room. I saw them hiding papers there once when they thought I was asleep." Detective Johnson exchanged a significant look with his colleagues. "Do you know what kind of papers they were, Sophia?" The girl shook her head. "No, but they always got really nervous when talking about them. They said it was their insurance." This information sparked a flurry of activity. While Sophia was taken to a safe location, accompanied by Linda and social workers, the police moved to obtain a warrant to search the Johnsons' home. Michael spent the next few hours in a state of controlled anxiety, waiting for news. Dr. Stern stayed by his side, providing legal guidance and moral support. Time dragged on, each minute feeling like an eternity. Finally, late in the afternoon, Detective Johnson returned, his face a mix of triumph and disgust. "We found the safe," he announced, "and what's inside, it's worse than we imagined." The documents in the safe were a goldmine of evidence. There were detailed records of suspicious financial transactions, correspondence with corrupt adoption system employees, and most shockingly, falsified paperwork related not just to Sophia's adoption, but to several other children. "This is much bigger than we thought," Detective Johnson said, running a hand over his weary face. "We're dealing with an organized network of adoption fraud and possible child trafficking." The revelation sent shockwaves through the police department. What had started as an investigation into one missing child had turned into a federal case of large-scale fraud and illegal adoption. In the following weeks, the case dominated local and national headlines. The Johnsons were arrested, along with several adoption officials and even a local judge. Each day brought new, shocking revelations about the extent of the corruption and abuse. For Sophia, these days were an emotional roller coaster. Although she was relieved not to return to the Johnsons, uncertainty about her future weighed heavily on her. Placed under state protection temporarily, she now lived in a shelter, with regular visits from Michael and Linda. Linda, in particular, became a pillar of emotional support, not just for Sophia, but for Michael as well. Her visits to the shelter provided the sense of normalcy and comfort that Sophia so desperately needed. "How is she really?" Michael asked Linda after one of these visits, his voice betraying his worry. Linda sighed, choosing her words carefully. "She's strong, Mr. Blackwood, stronger than any child should have to be. But she's also scared and confused. All she wants is a home, a family that truly loves her." Linda's words hit Michael hard. He knew he had grown attached to Sophia in a way he never expected, and the idea of her going through the foster system again terrified him. The trial of the Johnsons and their accomplices was a media event. Following Dr. Stern's guidance, Michael did his best to shield Sophia from the spotlight, but he knew that eventually she would have to testify. The day Sophia took the stand was one of the hardest in Michael's life. He watched, heart pounding, as the little girl bravely recounted her story before a packed courtroom. It was during this testimony that Sophia unintentionally provided the final piece of the puzzle. Describing her life with the Johnsons, she mentioned overhearing conversations about other children, names and places that had meant nothing to her at the time. Those seemingly insignificant details led investigators to uncover a child trafficking network spanning several states. Sophia's case had become the catalyst for one of the largest crackdowns on child trafficking in recent memory. As the trial neared its conclusion, Michael found himself thinking more about the future. What would happen to Sophia now? The thought of her returning to the adoption system after everything she had endured was unbearable. One difficult evening, after a long day in court, Michael found Linda waiting for him in his office. "Mr. Blackwood," she began, her voice gentle but firm, "I think we need to talk about Sophia's future." Michael nodded wearily, collapsing into a chair. "I know, Linda. I can't stand the thought of her going through all this again. She deserves a home, a family that loves her." Linda gave him a soft smile, her eyes shining with emotion and determination. "Yes, she does, and I think we both know where she can find that." Michael looked at Linda, a slow understanding dawning in his eyes. "You think I should adopt her?" Linda finished. "Yes, Mr. Blackwood. I think that's exactly what you should do." The silence that followed was charged with emotion. Michael felt his heart race at the possibility. He, who had never considered fatherhood, now couldn't imagine his life without Sophia. "But what if I'm not good enough?" he whispered, voicing his deepest fears. "What if I make mistakes?" Linda chuckled softly. "Oh, Mr. Blackwood, you certainly will make mistakes. All parents do. But what Sophia needs isn't perfection. She needs love, stability, and safety. And you've already proven you can give her all that." Linda's words seemed to dispel Michael's remaining doubts. Suddenly he knew exactly what he had to do. "Thank you, Linda," he said, standing with new energy. "I think I have an important call to make." As Michael picked up the phone to call Dr. Stern and start the adoption process, a wave of emotion washed over him. The case that had begun with a frightened child hidden in his mansion had grown far bigger than he ever imagined. The truth had come out, exposing a network of corruption and abuse. But from the ashes of that terrible revelation, a new family was about to be born. And Michael knew with a certainty he had never felt before that this was only the beginning of a new journey, one he and Sophia would make together. In the days that followed, Michael threw himself into the whirlwind of adoption procedures, working closely with Dr. Stern. He navigated the complex legal process, determined to do everything right for Sophia. Meanwhile, the case against the Johnsons and their accomplices continued to unfold in court. The evidence was overwhelming, and each new day brought shocking revelations about the scope of the child trafficking ring. Michael did his best to shield Sophia from the worst of the media storm, but it was impossible to isolate her entirely. With Linda's help, he strove to create an environment of normalcy and safety for the girl, despite the chaos around them. One afternoon, as Michael was reviewing documents in his office, he heard a soft knock at the door. It was Sophia, her eyes wide and curious as she peeked inside. "Michael," she called hesitantly, "may I come in?" Of course, sweetheart, he replied, putting aside his papers and giving her his full attention. What's on your mind? Sophia entered, twisting her hands nervously. I heard you and Linda talking last night, she said quietly. About adopting me. Michael's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't planned to have this conversation so soon, wanting to wait until everything was more certain, but looking at Sophia's anxious face, he knew honesty was best. Yes, Sophia, he said gently. I was thinking about adopting you. How do you feel about that? There was a tense moment of silence as Sophia processed the information. Then, to Michael's joy and surprise, a radiant smile spread across the little girl's face. I'd love that, she exclaimed, throwing herself into Michael's arms. You really want to be my dad? Michael felt tears fill his eyes as he hugged her tightly. More than anything in the world, sweetheart, he whispered. That moment of joy was a beam of light amid the ongoing court battle. In the weeks that followed, Michael worked tirelessly to finalize the adoption, determined to provide Sophia with the family and safety she deserved. Finally, after weeks of testimony, deliberation, and shocking revelations, the trial came to an end. The Johnsons and their accomplices were found guilty on multiple charges, including fraud, child abuse, and child trafficking. Their sentences were severe, ensuring they would spend decades behind bars. For Michael and Sophia, the end of the trial marked the start of a new chapter. On the day the adoption was made official, they celebrated with a small gathering at the Blackwood mansion, attended by Linda, Dr. Stern, and a few close friends. Watching Sophia laugh and play, her face lit with a joy he'd never seen before, Michael felt a profound sense of peace and purpose. The road that led them here had been hard and often painful, but every challenge, every obstacle, was worth it for this moment. You did a wonderful thing, Mr. Blackwood, Linda said softly, approaching him with 2 glasses of champagne. Michael smiled, accepting a glass. We did, Linda. I couldn't have done it without you. They toasted quietly, watching Sophia. Michael knew there would still be challenges ahead. There was much to heal, much to learn, but looking at his new daughter, he felt an unshakable certainty that together they could face anything. Morning light filtered through the large windows of Michael Blackwood's office, illuminating the stacks of documents spread across his desk. He'd stayed up all night reviewing the latest findings about Sophia's case. The revelations were shocking, and the implications enormous. Michael rubbed his tired eyes, trying to process it all. The scale of the fraud and corruption in the adoption system was far greater than he'd ever imagined. It wasn't just Sophia's case. Dozens of other children had been victimized by this terrible scheme. A soft knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. It was Linda, carrying a steaming cup of coffee. Thank you, Linda, Michael said, gratefully accepting the cup. How's Sophia this morning? Linda hesitated before answering. She's processing Mr. Blackwood. She spent much of the night awake, asking questions about her adoption, her biological parents. It's a lot for a child to handle. Michael nodded, feeling a pang of guilt. He knew revealing the truth to Sophia would be hard, but it was necessary. She had the right to know her own story. I'll go talk to her, he said, standing up. We need to face this together. He found Sophia in the garden, sitting on her favorite swing, gazing pensively into the distance. Seeing Michael approach, she gave him a small smile, though her eyes were full of worry. Hi, Michael, she said softly. Hi, sweetheart, he replied, settling onto the swing next to hers. Linda said you had a tough night. Want to talk about it? Sophia was silent for a moment, gently swaying. It's all so confusing, she finally said. I always knew the Johnsons weren't my real parents, but now it feels like nothing I knew about myself is real. Michael's heart clenched at the pain in her voice. I know it's hard, sweetheart, but there's one thing you need to know for sure. You are loved. By me, by Linda, by everyone who's met the amazing girl you are. Sophia looked at him, her eyes shining with tears she hadn't shed yet. But what if my real parents want me back? What if I have to leave? Michael felt a knot in his throat. He'd worried about that possibility himself, though he tried not to dwell on it. Sophia, no matter what happens, I promise I'll fight for you. I'll do everything I can to make sure you stay safe and happy." He paused for a moment before continuing. "Actually, I wanted to talk to you about that. I'd like to become your legal guardian. What do you think?" Sophia's eyes widened in surprise. You want to be my father?" Michael gave her a gentle smile. "Yes, sweetheart. If you'd like that, I would love to be your dad." For a moment, Sophia was still processing what he'd said. Then, with a muffled sob, she threw her arms around Michael, holding on tightly. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, please." In that moment, holding Sophia close, Michael knew he'd do anything to protect this child. No matter the obstacles, he was committed to giving Sophia the home and family she deserved. Over the following days, Michael immersed himself in the process of becoming Sophia's legal guardian. It was a path strewn with bureaucratic hurdles and stringent evaluations. Every aspect of his life was scrutinized. His finances, his background, his capacity to care for a child. The first step was a series of interviews with social workers. Michael meticulously prepared, gathering documents demonstrating his financial and emotional stability. He was questioned about his daily routine, his plans for Sophia's future, and how he would handle the challenges of raising a child with a traumatic past. "Mr. Blackwood," asked one of the social workers, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes, "do you understand that caring for a child who has experienced trauma requires an extraordinary commitment? It's not something you can delegate to nannies or housekeepers." Michael nodded earnestly. "I fully understand. I've already started reorganizing my professional life to have more time for Sophia. My priority now is her." The social worker scribbled notes, her face giving nothing away. "What about Sophia's education? How do you plan to address the time she's spent out of school?" "I've already hired private tutors to help her catch up," Michael explained. "We're going at a pace she's comfortable with, and when she's ready, we plan to enroll her in a regular school." The questions continued, covering everything from Sophia's diet to Michael's plans for handling adolescence. Though exhausting, Michael recognized the necessity of such scrutiny. After all, Sophia's well-being was at stake. Linda was an invaluable ally throughout the process. She not only cared for Sophia while Michael dealt with legal matters, but also offered eloquent statements about the relationship between Michael and the girl. "Mr. Blackwood may not have experience as a father," she said during one of the evaluations, "but the love and dedication he has for Sophia are undeniable. I've seen firsthand how he's restructured his life to care for her." Linda's testimony was especially compelling. Her long history with the Blackwood family and her clear affection for Sophia left a strong impression on the assessors. "Mrs. Thompson," asked one of the social workers, "in your opinion, is Mr. Blackwood truly prepared for the demands of single fatherhood?" Linda smiled, her eyes shining with conviction. "Mr. Johnson, I've worked for the Blackwood family for over 3 decades. I watched Michael grow from a privileged boy into a successful businessman, but never, in all those years, have I seen him so dedicated, so committed to something as he is to Sophia. He may not have experience, but he has love, resources, and determination. Most importantly, he has Sophia, who inspires him to be better every day." As the legal process unfolded, Sophia continued her journey of recovery. With Michael's and Linda's support, she attended regular therapy sessions, learning to cope with her traumatic past and envision a brighter future. Dr. Emily Chen, the child therapist working with Sophia, was impressed by her progress. "Sophia shows remarkable resilience," she told Michael during one of their updates. "Of course, there's still a lot of work to do, but the stable, loving environment you and Linda have provided is making a world of difference." Michael received the compliment with a mixture of pride and humility. "What else can we do to help her, Dr. Chen?" The therapist smiled. "Keep doing what you're doing. Be consistent, patient, and above all, present. Sophia needs to know you'll be there for her no matter what." Those words became a mantra for Michael. Over the following months, he made every effort to be present in Sophia's life. He helped her with homework, attended her art therapy sessions, and spent hours simply playing with her in the garden. One day, as they colored together in the living room, Sophia looked at Michael with a serious expression. "Michael," she said, setting aside her crayon, can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart," Michael replied, putting down his colored pencil. "What is it?" Sophia hesitated, biting her lip nervously. Do you really want to be my dad?" Even after knowing all the bad things that happened to me, Michael felt his heart clench. He moved to kneel in front of Sophia, taking her small hands in his. "Sophia, look at me," he said gently. When their eyes met, he continued, "I want to be your dad more than anything in the world. The bad things that happened aren't your fault, and they don't change who you are, an amazing, brave, loving girl. I feel honored to have the chance to be your father." Sophia's eyes filled with tears, but a shaky smile appeared on her lips. "I love you, Michael," she whispered, wrapping her arms around his neck. "I love you too, sweetheart," Michael replied, his own voice thick with emotion. "More than you can imagine." The community in Greenwich, initially skeptical about Michael and Sophia's story, gradually changed its view. As more details of the case came to light and people witnessed Michael's dedication, public opinion began to shift in his favor. At first, there were many whispers and curious looks whenever Michael took Sophia to the park or the local grocery store. But over time, people began to see beyond the famous billionaire and the girl with a tragic past. They saw a devoted father and a delightful daughter, building a life together. Sarah Johnson, one of Michael's neighbors, was among the first to change her mind. "I'll admit, at first I was skeptical," she told Linda during a chance encounter at the market. "I thought it was just another rich guy trying to improve his image. But seeing how he is with that girl, it changed my opinion completely." Linda smiled, pleased to hear it. "Mr. Blackwood really is devoted to Sophia. She's brought a light into his life that I've never seen before. These small conversations, these moments of acceptance and understanding, accumulated over time. The community that once regarded Michael with suspicion now saw him as an example of compassion and dedication. Meanwhile, investigations into Sophia's case and the broader adoption fraud continued. Michael maintained regular contact with Detective Johnson, who led the investigation. "Mr. Blackwood," the detective told him during one of their weekly updates, "the evidence we found in the Johnson safe opened a Pandora's box. We're uncovering connections to corrupt officials in multiple adoption agencies across the state." Michael felt a mixture of anger and relief. "What about the other children? Is there any chance of finding them?" The detective sighed heavily. "We're trying, but many of these adoptions took place years ago. Some of those children may already be adults now, but we won't give up. Every child deserves to know the truth about their origins." These conversations left Michael emotionally drained. The thought of so many other children going through what Sophia had endured was almost too much to bear. But he channeled his anguish into action, using his resources and influence to support organizations working to reform the adoption system and protect vulnerable children. One day, while Michael was in his office, Linda came in with a worried expression. "Mr. Blackwood," she said, "I think you should see this." She handed him the local newspaper. The front-page article was about Sophia's case, revealing details that should not have been made public. Michael felt his stomach drop. "How did this leak?" Linda shook her head. "I don't know, sir, but I'm afraid this might affect the adoption process." Immediately, Michael phoned his lawyer, who promised to investigate the leak and take legal action if necessary. But the damage was done. Reporters started swarming the property, eager for a statement or a photo. Sophia, naturally, was upset by the sudden attention. "Why won't they leave us alone?" she asked one evening, after a particularly stressful day. Michael held her tight. "They're just doing their jobs, sweetheart. But don't worry, this will pass. What matters is that we're together." Despite the turmoil outside, Michael focused on strengthening his bond with Sophia. They spent their evenings playing board games, reading stories, or just talking about the day. It was during one of these quiet nights that Sophia asked a question that caught Michael off guard. "Michael," she said hesitantly, "do you think my real mom is still alive?" Michael felt his heart tighten. He'd known this question would come eventually, but it still hit him unexpectedly. "I don't know, Sophia," he answered honestly. "But if you want, we can try to find out. I just want you to know that no matter what happens, you'll always have a home with me." Sophia nodded thoughtfully. "I'd like to know," she said at last, "but not now. Maybe when I'm older." Michael smiled, proud of Sophia's maturity. "Whenever you're ready, we'll do it together." As the adoption process moved forward, Michael encountered ever-growing challenges. Questions arose about his ability to be a single father, concerns about his public life affecting Sophia, and even insinuations about his motives for adopting her. Each obstacle only strengthened Michael's resolve. He confronted every challenge head-on, always with Sophia's best interests at heart. At last, after months of anxiety and waiting, the day of the final hearing arrived. Michael adjusted his tie nervously as he waited in the courthouse corridor with Sophia and Linda. "It'll be all right," Linda reassured him, giving his shoulder a comforting squeeze. Sophia, dressed in her best outfit, clutched Michael's hand tightly. "I'm scared," she admitted quietly. Michael knelt to meet her gaze. "I'm a little scared too, sweetheart, but you know what? No matter what happens in there, we'll face it together, okay?" Sophia nodded, a small smile curving her lips. "Okay." When they finally entered the courtroom, Michael felt the weight of all eyes on them. The Judge May, a middle-aged man with a solemn expression, observed them carefully as they took their seats. The hearing was intense. Michael's lawyer presented detailed evidence of Sophia's progress under his care, testimonies from professionals who had worked with her, and passionate arguments about why Michael was the best option for her future. Dr. Emily Chen, Sophia's therapist, was among the first to testify. "Your Honor," she said in a calm, professional tone, "in my 20 years of practice, I've rarely seen a child make such significant strides in such a short time. The stable, loving environment Mr. Blackwood has provided has been crucial to Sophia's recovery." The social worker who conducted the home study also gave a positive assessment. "Mr. Blackwood has shown an extraordinary commitment to Sophia's well-being," he stated. "He's completely rearranged his life to meet her needs, and the bond between them is evident." But the most emotional moment came when Sophia was called to speak. Gathering her courage, she stood and spoke in a small but firm voice about her desire to stay with Michael. "He makes me feel safe," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "He makes me feel loved. I want him to be my dad." The judge listened attentively, occasionally asking questions and taking notes. His expression remained neutral throughout, revealing nothing of his eventual decision. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the judge prepared to announce his ruling. Michael held his breath, feeling Sophia squeeze his hand tightly. "After careful consideration of all the evidence presented," the judge began, his voice echoing in the hushed room, "I am convinced that Sophia's best interests will be served by granting legal guardianship to Mr. Michael Blackwood." Applause erupted in the courtroom. Michael pulled Sophia into a tight hug, tears of joy streaming down his face. "We did it, sweetheart," he whispered. "We're officially a family." Sophia looked at him, her eyes shining with happiness. "Can we go home now, Dad?" Michael's heart soared at hearing Sophia call him Dad for the first time. "Yes, my darling," he said, voice choked with emotion. "Let's go home." The celebration that followed at the Blackwood mansion was a burst of joy and relief. Friends, colleagues, and even a few reporters who had followed the case gathered to mark the beginning of a new chapter in Michael and Sophia's lives. Linda, of course, was at the heart of it, coordinating the party with her usual efficiency and making sure everything was perfect for Sophia. Watching her interact with the girl, Michael couldn't help noticing how Linda had become a motherly figure to Sophia. In the midst of the celebration, Sophia pulled Michael aside, her eyes shining. "Dad," she said, testing the word again, I just wanted to say thank you for everything." Michael felt his heart swell with an emotion he could barely contain. He knelt to her level. "No, sweetheart, I should be thanking you. You taught me what really matters in life." Sophia smiled, the brightest smile Michael had ever seen, and hugged him tightly. As night fell, guests began to leave, leaving only the newly formed Blackwood family. Michael, Tom, Sophia, and Linda sat out on the veranda, gazing at the stars. "So," Linda asked with a smile, How does it feel to be an official dad, Mr. Blackwood? Michael looked at Sophia, who had fallen asleep with her head on his lap, and smiled. Honored, scared, overwhelmed. All at once, Linda nodded sympathetically. That's parenthood, and you're doing a wonderful job. Michael reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them here. From a distant, cold billionaire, he had become a loving, devoted father, and Sophia, the frightened child he'd found hiding in his mansion, was now a happy, confident little girl with a bright future. You know, Linda, Michael said softly, stroking Sophia's hair, I always thought success meant having more money, more power, but now I understand. This, he gestured to Sophia and Linda, this is true success. Linda smiled, her eyes shining with emotion. Welcome to the family, Mr. Blackwood. As the night sky sparkled overhead, Michael knew his life had changed forever, and he couldn't have been happier about it.